Welcome to Beyond Prostate Cancer. Powered by the reluctant Brotherhood, this show is built on one belief, that no man should face prostate cancer alone. Here, we redefine strength. Strength is showing up, speaking honestly, and standing shoulder to shoulder with other men who understand the fight. Every 2 weeks, we share real conversations about life beyond the diagnosis. Welcome to Beyond Prostate Cancer. I'm Casey, your host. Thank you again for joining us for yet another episode. And as always, I like to remind the viewer that this isn't just a show about a diagnosis. It's about the lives that men built before prostate cancer and the lives that they continue to build beyond the diagnosis. Today's a special day. We have none other than Mr. Jacques Pierre, who hails from Georgia. And Jacques is not only a survivor, he happens to be the executive producer of this very show. So it is a great day to have Jacques, and he's going to talk to us about his journey. He's going to talk to us about his resilience, his adaptation, and the way that he rebuilt himself after his diagnosis. So Mr. Jacques Pierre, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Casey, for having me. I am honored to be here today.
Great, glad to have you. So, your journey is interesting because not only did it include surgery, but it also included radiation treatment, which later resulted in something that's called radiation cystitis, a complication that brought its own set of challenges after the treatment phase was supposed to be over. It's interesting because a lot of people don't know what radiation cystitis is, so we'll get into that. But we want to talk about what you're doing right now for those who don't know. You're moderating the Reluctant Brotherhood group during the week. You happen to be the editor-in-chief of something called the PCA Review, and we'd like to talk about that. But again, we want to talk about your persistence, your reflection, and your purpose. So before we get started, I'd like to talk about who Jacques was before prostate cancer. And I'd like to ask you a few icebreaker questions, so to speak. So won't be anything too heavy. Are you ready for a few questions?
Let's do it. Thank you.
All right. So these are going to be fill in the blanks. All right. I am originally from and was raised where?
I am originally from Haiti, the island of Hispaniola, as some would call it. And I was raised in Washington Heights, New York.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm familiar with Washington Heights. I'm a native New Yorker myself. I can't say that I spent a lot of time up there, but I'm very familiar with it. George Washington Bridge, and very vibrant community, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Second question. My favorite sport to play when I was a youth was what?
My favorite sport definitely was soccer. I enjoyed it up to the point where I started getting hurt. Ended up with a broken bone in my foot. And my father was like, no more playing soccer for you.
Okay. All right. Third question, last one. My first car was a make, model, and year here, Jacques, and color.
First car. Chevy Nova, 1972, blue, straight six, no AC. It was an 8-track. And,
Yeah.
and I drove this car until it finally left me somewhere on the side of the Hudson River, man.
Man.
I love that car.
Okay. Chevy, we say Chevy Nova.
Chevy Nova, straight six.
All right. Okay. I'll keep that in mind for later on.
So if I just may, I remember I used to do my own tune-up in the car. We used to flush radiators at that time, change the oil myself. And yeah, it was a very
wow.
good.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
So there's yet another, excuse me, another skill that you have that I wasn't aware of. Okay, you're like a mechanic. You were a mechanic too,
I wouldn't say I was a mechanic, you know,
but you knew how to do
because
the basic stuff.
yeah, these days I lift up the hood of my car and I'm like, I don't even know where the
Yeah,
oil
everything
stick
is
is.
computerized these days. Yeah. All right. Listen, thanks so much for sharing that. That was cool. I appreciate you. Okay, so now let's get into more of who you were before prostate cancer.
Mhm.
Um, who was Jacques Pierre before prostate cancer, and what gave your life meaning and purpose during that phase of your life?
Ah,
What were you doing?
who was I before prostate cancer? Well, I was a man who was focused on building things, projects, relationships, uh, communities. I find myself, I was always focused on connections.
Hmm.
Of course, dealing with, making around family, friendships, these were the things that grounded me. But
Hmm.
uh, I always used to be focused on projects and goals and responsibility and trying to accomplish things. It was part of the ego of growing up, if you will, moving
Okay.
up the ladder of your career, of your life, that kind of stuff.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So when you look back now at parts of yourself that stayed the same, and what parts might have changed along your journey, uh, speak to that for a second. How did your life change since the diagnosis?
So before my diagnosis, I was always looking ahead, uh, to the next goal, the next responsibility, right?
Hmm.
But prostate cancer, I found, stripped away a lot of, that illusion that we are fully in control
Hmm.
of everything. So what I find myself doing now, it's like I I I tend to pay more attention to moments, like moments we having now. Uh, I value presence more instead of uh, goals,
Okay.
because it's part of the ego, us as men, we have to deal with, right? So I find prostate cancer kind of like forced me to release my ego of who
Hmm.
I am not my career. I am a prostate cancer survivor, and what is my role now? So that's what prostate cancer have
That's how it changed you. Yeah.
it stripped that illusion, like, hey, what you thought life was all about, that's not the real that's not the real you, if you will.
So it sounds like it humbled you.
Yep, it does. Oh yeah, it does. Especially when you find yourself dealing with having to go to surgery, radiations, and asking people for help. you
Right.
know
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big part of that. You know, many people, excuse me, many people have a family history. Um, do you have a family history of prostate cancer? Anyone
I
in
am.
your family?
Yes, I'm sorry for cutting you off. Because now this is my what I like to talk about, right? Um, I found that since being on this journey. In the beginning, I was shy talking about it, but now, part of what we were talking about with the illusion and stuff like that, I find once I was able to allow that to go, I can speak truly of who I am. And the very first thing is that my father passed away from stage 4 prostate cancer.
Sorry
And
to hear that.
um, it was a hard journey for him. It was a hard journey for me because when he was diagnosed, I remember when he was having his scan, I was in the room with the technician, and I saw how his skeleton was glowing as they were doing his CT scan, and that image stayed with me till today. Every time I go for my PSA test, you know, I have this anxiety. You know, there's an anxiety that stays with you.
Right.
You never walk away from it, and that's part of the prostate cancer journey, and that's what a lot of men don't want to talk about. They don't want to address this mental aspect of this disease.
Right. Yeah. Well, first, let me say, I'm sorry for the loss of your father. Um, a lot of the guests have stated they too have had family members who have passed away. But nowadays, we know that with early detection, it's very survivable if we catch things early. So, once again, here's the thing. I'm sure your dad is looking down on you saying, Jacques, you're doing well. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Now, if you don't mind, let's start. Let's talk about those 4 words I like to call them. You have prostate cancer. Is that how the news was delivered to you? Do you remember that day?
Yes, I do remember that day, but it was disorienting. It was nerve-wracking. I felt like I was in a fog. I didn't know what to think when I found out that it was my turn, but I was already knew that it was something that was in my family. So when my dad passed away, I immediately went to my primary care physician and I was like, hey, my father just passed away, from prostate cancer. I didn't know what it was, I was in my mid 30s. I wasn't thinking
Right,
about that.
right,
And
right. Like,
and
what's this? Yeah.
and I remember the very first thing he mentioned to me was, okay, every year when you come for your annual checkup, make sure I test your PSA. And he was like, that's the only thing you have to remember. Just make sure you ask me to include PSA in your test. And at one point, I'm like, okay, sure, doc, no problem. And I recall very well the first time he ordered my PSA test, mid 30s, the insurance company denied it.
Mhm.
So, you know, I back then, right? I find myself between him and I fighting with the insurance company to get a test that for a disease that took away my father because they were like, hey,
Right.
he's too young,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it becomes like that's where sometimes we say we have to advocate for ourselves, right? So I found that I early on, as a preventative measure, I was being denied something
Wow, yeah,
that is supposed to save my life, right?
yeah, yeah. Navigating any kind of health crisis
Mhm.
uh, when you have insurance or when you don't can be very stressful, right?
Yeah.
So you already have the condition, you already have an illness, but if there's going to be any kind of interference with the insurance company or the lack of insurance,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
really have to, yeah, you got to have some support. You got to have maybe an advocate. You have to advocate for yourself, but yeah, that can be tough. Okay, so let's talk about something, if you don't mind, for people who may not know. You did surgery, you did radiation, but then you got something called radiation cystitis. So if you can walk us through how long after the surgery did you have radiation? And then when did you start experiencing the cystitis?
Huh. Well, first of all, um, having undergone radiation, I mean, surgery and radiation, they were both difficult. I was diagnosed in my late 40s, and because of the history in my family, plus the fact that my Gleason score was 4.3, where
Right.
that meant that my uh, prostate diagnosis was aggressive, because, as you know, the first number, the higher it is, it's the most aggressive form. Whether if it's a 4 with 3, even though the numbers will tell you yes, it's a 7, but it's how the 7 is
Right.
calculated.
Exactly.
I was faced with three choices. The first one was like, okay, you do radiation. I mean, you do surgery, because, then you just take it out. There are certain side effects. Um, Radiation, long-term side effects down the road, or do nothing. So at that time for me, doing nothing was not an option,
Mhm.
because of the fact that, hey, you have a history in your family, you cannot not do anything about this. Then it becomes, okay, well, what do we do, right? And I was fortunate because I had a very good medical team around me. It just so happened that way. And they took their time. I had a lot of questions. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. So I was
Mhm.
I was pushing my boundaries, if you will. What does this mean? What would happen to me here? What happened if this doesn't work? What's the next step? Because it became like playing sports, if you will. Like, you need to have a playbook. Uh, and I was relying on everyone around me, urologists. I got multiple opinions. Uh, I would get opinion from the urologist, from the oncologist, from the medical urologist, and then I go back to my original urologist and say, "Look, this is what these four guys told me. What do you think?" And then
Right.
start the whole cycle over again, right? But I'm saying that to say, surgery and radiation were difficult for me, but radiation cystitis was something that I did not anticipate. And that
So,
that by itself falls into a whole new realm.
right. So, if you can kind of explain what radiation cystitis is to the viewers who don't know.
Uh, it's scary. It's a touchy topic, because
Take your
people
time.
people tend not to want to talk about it, because after radiation, okay, I had my surgery 4 years, no, 5 years to the month of my surgery. I had recurrence of my prostate, right, during
Mhm, mhm.
a PSA test. So it was like, okay, what does that mean? Well, guess what? You're right back where your father was. You got cancer all over again. So
Mhm.
what's the next step? The next step is radiation. Radiation with ADT or radiation without ADT. Fine. Then I'm like, okay, well, it's back, right?
Right.
So then again, with the team around me, after doing my own research, uh, a lot of doom scrolling at like 2 o'clock in the morning through Google and Yahoo. Yahoo was still around at that time. What does this mean? What are my prognosis and stuff like that? And so I had 38 session of photon therapy, for
Okay.
treatment throughout my pelvis. These days, it's more targeted, so there's been advance uh, of treatment. So it's
Right.
not as invasive as it was back then, but I had 38 round of treatment. Then the cells died. The radiation killed the prostate cancer cells that were still in my pelvic area.
Right.
I recovered, um, became what they known as undetectable.
Right.
But I was still feeling, you know, radiation side effects. What do I mean by that? My urine pattern change. It will I would feel burning sensation. I developed
Mm.
so over time because so I'm trying to keep my answer short, but it's like you bringing up a topic inside of me that I
Well,
usually
it's a
don't.
very sensitive topic, and so I understand. Take your time.
I remember when I was going through radiation, I met this lovely nurse, very friendly, very nice looking nurse, and she's like, Mr. Pierre, radiation is the gift that keeps on giving. I had no idea what she meant by that. So, radiation is the gift that keeps on giving. What do I mean by that? Now, it doesn't happen to everyone, everybody's journey is different. Some
Okay.
people may develop bladder cancer, people may develop strictures in their urethra, whereby at the section where the surgery was done, cutting between your bladder neck, and it's like where the prostate was, they have to cut both ends and then paste it together, if you will.
Mhm.
Scar tissue builds around that area,
Right. Yeah.
and then your bladder neck starts to close because now you have scar tissue in that area, and that tend to prevent you from urinating, which is something that I had experienced. And you see, that's the reason why it's like we need to talk about these things, but then we don't want to scare someone off, you know, to think that, well, because Jacques experienced it, the
Right.
next guy
Right.
is gonna
Right.
run through the same.
It doesn't mean that everyone will. This is
Exactly.
your experience. Yeah.
But it's real. It is something that you and your oncologist, your urologist. Right now, I have a team of doctor between my primary care, my oncologist, my urologist, and my gastro, because I also suffer from irritable bowel syndrome, a side effect of radiation cystitis, right? So all the
Yeah.
symptoms I'm experiencing right now, they all say, yeah, this is a result of your radiation. It's all part of radiation cystitis. So I find this
Okay.
group of doctor, they all have to communicate with each other. They all have to know what medication they're providing me. Because if it's something to calm my bladder now, what are the side effects if I'm taking blood pressure medication?
Yeah. Your journey is very unique.
Mm.
You've gone through a lot. You're still struggling. You're still fighting. You're still here, right? And you're not going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
You're still going to stay at the wheel, as we say, because you're on a mission.
Yeah.
Um, Radiation cystitis, although definitely something not comfortable, um, to put it lightly, it has not dissuaded you from being in a position to share. So my question to you is, and then I think we might take a break, but at what point did you realize that your experience was more, uh, or was becoming more about a different mission than just your own story? When did you decide, you know what, it's time to share my experience with other men?
When I had reached a stage I always used to do things alone. I was a go-getter. I was an athlete. I used to run 5 miles a day. Um, if I had a headache, I wouldn't take Tylenols or Advil or anything like that because I know how to overcome obstacles or challenges, right? To just keep
Hmm.
pushing ahead. Um, it got to a point where, in dealing with chronic pelvic pain, where, again, my radiation cystitis, it felt like there was a piece of glass that was lodged
Mm.
between my scrotum and my rectum.
Mm.
And it was very painful. I had gone to a doctor who, he was very well respected in the field. He was recommended to me. Um, I met him. My wife was like, "Hey, I have some reservation about this guy. Something doesn't feel right." And I felt a little bit off also in interacting with him. But at the same time, I was like, well, in my mind, this guy is very well. I did my research on him. He was
Right.
very, I look at his Google reviews. He was 4 stars, 4.5 stars. Everybody liked him. So I decided, yes, I was in a lot of pain at that time. It
Yeah.
was a stressful situation for me. I wasn't thinking clearly. I'm like, I need help. So I went to him and I allowed him to do a procedure on me. And things did not get better, it got worse.
Oh boy.
So when I went back to him, I'm like, hey, doc, I'm in pain. You know what I'm saying? Please help me. During that session, he literally shrugged his shoulder at me and told me, well, there's nothing else I can do for you. And that experience infuriated me. I was pissed. Let's put it that
Mm.
way.
Okay.
And at the same time, my wife was like, well, what if you find a group of guys who are experiencing the same thing you are experiencing? Maybe you can hear something. Maybe you can find out what somebody else have done to deal with this. And the word reluctant. I reluctantly took her advice. I was like, no, I'm not gonna sit in a room with a bunch of guys, a bunch of whiners, a bunch of crybabies, talking about, oh, this, or my wife, or
Th- you better hope the brothers don't hear this, Jacques. But you know they
but
will.
you know and so I decided, you know what, yes, I found this group online, the Reluctant Brotherhood. And I decided, you know what, okay, fine, I'll just log on. It's an online group. I didn't have to walk into any room with a bunch of people. So okay, that's fine. I've been
Right.
on
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Zoom calls before, right? And I remember the very first meeting, the way these guys started interacting with each other, sharing their stories, uh, the pain, the suffering, the anxiety, the stress,
Right.
what people did not understand about them, how no one was paying attention about their care.
Mhm.
They kind of like reinforce. I'm like, wait a minute, this is what I've been going through. Nobody's been listening to me, and
Right.
so I find myself sitting around this group of uh, peers, men who are walking the prostate cancer journey. They are all survivors. Nobody's coming and say, "Hey, I'm a doctor. I got my PhD. I'm an expert." They were like, "No, we
Right.
are all
Just
cancer
regular guys in that room, right?
regular guys who are just trying to manage this thing one day at a time." And then I was like, you know what? This is where I belong.
Okay. And so that's where it all began.
That's where it all
So
began.
so I heard you say something. before we go to break, I want to take this opportunity to give your wife a big shout out because many times it's the women in our lives who are the encouragers. When men can be stubborn,
Yeah.
men could have too much ego. We're macho guys. We're like, we're not doing that, right? But sometimes it's the women in our lives. So um, hats off to your wife for encouraging you to go and find the brotherhood of fighters, of survivors, because we're all in this together, right? So thank you for sharing that. If I think now might be a great time to thank our sponsors, right? We'll go on a break, take a quick break, thank our sponsors, and when we come back, I want to continue the conversation, but I also want to talk about some work that you're currently doing. How does that sound?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll be back. We're grateful to our sponsors and partners who support men's health education, emotional resilience, and peer connection. Their investment helps the Reluctant Brotherhood ensure that no man and his family face prostate cancer alone. To support the movement, visit thereluctantbrotherhood.org. Subscribe and join us every 2 weeks. Welcome back to Beyond Prostate Cancer. I'm Casey, your host. And for those of you who are just joining us, we're here with Mr. Jacques Pierre, the executive producer of the Beyond Prostate Cancer show. Jacques is a man whose story reminds us that even through complications and uncertainty, that purpose can still emerge. Jacques, welcome back. We'd like to continue the conversation if you don't mind.
Thank you, Casey. Glad to be back here.
All right. So far, thankfully, you've been able to share your experience and how other men can understand that this journey is survivable if you get early screening. It's important to have a good support system. And guess what? The Reluctant Brotherhood can be a part of that support system. So before we get into what I consider to be a very special venture that you've embarked upon, I'd like to talk to you really quickly about the advice that you would give to someone who is newly diagnosed, considering their options.
That is a very good question, Casey, and I really appreciate that. The reason why I say that is because when I was first diagnosed, the experience for me was like I was standing on a ledge. And I had this group of people down below shouting, jump, jump, jump. Make a decision, just go for it, we got you. And when I found the Reluctant Brotherhood, right away, the first impression, I mean, we have almost 500 members worldwide, right? So there is no way for me it wouldn't be fair for me to pick out one individual person over the other. Meaning that like you, Casey, for example, I know if I pick up the phone at any time and I'm like, hey, brother, I'm having an issue, you're going to say, okay, talk to me. And it's the same thing with Blee, with Jen, with David, with it goes on and on and on. And part of it also by proxy, we've acquired some extended families, if you will, through LTG, Leon Thomas Group, and LTG Studios, right? Because now I know I can pick up the phone or email Coach Leon and say, Coach, I'm having a bad day today. And then he would tell me, look, okay, we're not talking from a prostate cancer standpoint, but let me give you my advice from a different point of view.
Right. Yeah.
And the same would apply to our our post-production producer, Oren, who sits in the background making you and I look good every day, right? I always tease his work belongs in Hollywood, and I'm still waiting for that because his name is Mr. Clutch. For all of you out there, who doesn't know that, he's our Mr. Clutch. So,
Right.
being diagnosed was one thing for a young man, but having gone through the side effects, the treatment, it's another thing. But what I quickly realized is the emotional impact that comes with this. And in many ways, having been fortunate to be welcomed and embraced within the Reluctant Brotherhood, because the the motto, quote unquote, we don't deal with politics, we don't deal with religion, but I like to take it one step further. I'm like, we don't care who you are, what's your ideology, what's your belief. Leave those things outside in the street. Don't even bring them in the lobby. Leave them outside in the street, because when you come in here, we are all here to help each other, regardless
Right,
of
right, right.
who you are, and the help. We have, I would say, two basic requirements for any member of the Reluctant Brotherhood. You have to have been diagnosed with prostate cancer, or you have to be the partner, caregiver, a member of someone who is dealing with prostate cancer. Those are the only requirements. And then we will embrace you under the tent with open arms. So, in many ways, okay, step back. I remember when I first joined, I was very quiet. I was ashamed. I was shy, to talk about erectile dysfunction, to talk about incontinence. People don't, it's like I'm wearing a pad, or I'm peeing in myself in the middle of the street. These are things that people don't openly talk about. Or if I sneeze too loud or cough too loud, there might be an accident. But once I entered the Reluctant Brotherhood, I found those were what I was referring to earlier. They're just egos, hang-ups that we're holding on to. and, and
Yeah.
and the Reluctant Brotherhood allowed me to remove these things away. It's like peel back the layers so that way I can be the real person that I am. And there's been some key players in this. Like I say, we are 500 members strong, but at the same time, you find yourself with a group around you. Um, I remember at one point, David tapped me on the shoulder. He's like, "Hey, Jack, I need your help." I didn't know David. I was just, I was just this guy sitting in a corner going, "Yeah, me too, me too. Yes, I'm having pain there. Yes, I can't sit. Yes, when I cough, I leak. Or, I have to take uh, 4 Seattles, put on a kitchen timer, wait an hour." These are things people don't talk about. But I'm like, okay, yeah, I can relate to that. And then David was like, "Hey, we need you to be more involved. We need you to be more vocal. I need
Okay.
you to be a moderator." And then at first, again, then it's like, okay, what is my why? That's where all of this came out. Why am I here?
Mhm.
I was like, why am I here? This is, yeah, I'm dealing with prostate cancer, but now I'm finding it's not about me anymore. It's about the next guy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
So by David, you're talking about Dave Diaz, who is
David
the executive
Diaz.
director of the
Yeah.
Reluctant Brotherhood.
Yeah.
And, pardon me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're basically saying is, to the newly diagnosed men, find a support group that can offer you that safe space
Mhm.
to go and share, and preferably let it be the Reluctant Brotherhood, because
Yes.
we know that it is the safe space, and we believe in the mission of the Reluctant Brotherhood and the vision which is to reach as many men as possible and have them be able to have somewhere to go, right? And a group of brothers that are just like them going through this. That's what it sounds like you're saying. Am I right?
Um, the motto is we hold each other up.
Yep. Yep.
There
Yep.
is a song that was created by you, Casey, about that. That's our anthem, if you will. We hold
Yeah.
each other up, and this is something we stand by. That is something we preach every day, and it's something that we mean. So my within my involvement, there were a couple of key guys, I have to say, that kind of like inspired me to step out of my own shadows, if you will. Yes, you, yes, Chris, yes, David, but at the same time, there were some elders, if you will. Uh, Two of them have passed away. Reverend Martin,
Right.
uh, Kenneth Mason.
Right.
So, and one gentleman who's I apologize for saying that, he's a 20 plus 4 year old prostate cancer survivor, Sylvester.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, these are the guys that are like, hey, young kid, because now I'm a young kid, young man.
Yeah. Those were the older gentlemen.
you know,
Yeah.
they're like young men. Uh, it's not about you anymore. The fact that you're
Right.
here, it's about the next guy that's coming behind you.
Right. Right.
That's
Right.
where your responsibility lies right now. And that's what I embrace.
Yeah. I remember those gentlemen well, and they're sorely missed in the Brotherhood. But I know through their spirit they're talking to you to create something, which is what I want to talk about now.
Sure.
The PCA review. I want to know. Well, I know, but let the viewers know what the PCA review is and how it came to be.
Uh, I have find myself again. Once I remove the persona that this was not about me anymore, I find myself in a position where uh, David and the board members, if you will, of the Reluctant Brotherhood, they were like, well, we want to make things better. We want to improve the organization. Uh, how do we go about improving? What area do you see as a newcomer, right? The young kid on the block, quote unquote. Um, Meanwhile, I'm like, hey, you guys are in your 60s. I'm 60 years old. Who you calling a kid? But they're like,
Mhm.
our journey is a little bit longer than yours, right? So I'm like, okay, well, first of all, it seems like our communication right now is in house. It's effective. We are having meetings. We have a lot of meetings, which I will, kind of like give a little breakdown a little bit. But at the same time, there's a wider audience outside that we need to, because prostate cancer is a big community. So we don't look at it as, oh, you have to be a member of the Reluctant Brotherhood to benefit from our message. It can be someone from any prostate cancer group. We have something we want to share. Here it is, because our approach is, at least if we can help the next guy, our work is done. So um, David asked me, well, how do you think we would be able to uh, write a journal just like that? Something to communicate to new members, guys that are going through the journey, or what have you. They come in with a lot of questions, and sometimes we have a lacking of providing them exactly the type of information they should be looking into when they need to speak with their doctors and stuff like that. So I was like, challenge accepted right away, because you're telling me, you're talking not about me, not to me, you're not giving me a task. You're telling me how can we help the next guy who's coming in, instead of having him go to Chat GPT and try to get random answers. And then, because a lot of us in this industry, we tend to be relying to Chat GPT to tell us what to do with which is fine. AI is a perfect tool, but it's a tool, you know. So I took it, I went away, I thought about it, and ultimately I came with I'm like, well, what do you think if we come up with a monthly publication where we talk about new treatments that are coming? Because now, I'm like, we want to use this as a mean to educate people, right? And also educate ourselves. New treatments that are coming out, new medications that are coming out. How do we consider, based on your stage or this medication, what questions you should be asking your doctor? Because most of us, which I was in that stage too, I remember walking into my urologist or my oncologist office, just say, okay, doc, I'm here. What do you want me to do? And then he would ask me, do you have any questions for me? And I'd say no,
Right.
because I didn't know what to ask.
You didn't know what to ask. Yeah.
And so now we're using the PCA review as a added tool to say, okay, if you've been diagnosed, as an example, with prostate cancer, this is what it means to you. And these are 10 possible questions you should consider asking your doctor in relation to your situation. We've positioned this magazine, and again, it's a monthly published magazine, in collaboration with the Reluctant Brotherhood, because it was created with the intent of helping the Reluctant Brotherhood, people who are around the Reluctant Brotherhood. Don't go to Google and ask Dr. Google questions. At least let us give you some questions, and then you can go and do your own research on the side. And within the publication, we follow advices from trusted sources. We put the links where those sources are from, so that way, if anybody wants to go and do additional research on their own based on the article they see, they can go and dig a little bit deeper. At least we teaching them how to fish, if you will, so they can go fish, for themselves.
So real quick then, so where can one find the PCA review?
PCA review is on the Reluctant Brotherhood website.
Okay.
I publish a copy of it on my LinkedIn page, but primarily it is on the Reluctant Brotherhood website, because the first intent was to make it available to those who are considering joining the Reluctant Brotherhood, or who may have questions, but it's a publicly available publication.
Okay, so one doesn't have to be a member of the Brotherhood to access it, which is great.
It's
wow, this is great. So this is,
and it's free of charge.
Right. This is the first publication coming out of the Reluctant Brotherhood, other than the blog. So hats off to you, because this is needed. This was needed in this space, and to know that you've gone from survivor to moderator to executive producer of this very show, now to editor-in-chief. I don't know what's next, but I will say this. We're going to have you back on
Sure.
to talk about what you're doing in a few months, because I know you wear a lot of hats, right? All of these hats, and
I'm writing
I
a
haven't even
book.
mentioned all the hats, right? I haven't even mentioned all the hats because I want to keep some things, under wraps. But I want to say this to you. I often say that one of my favorite quotes by Horace Mann, an educator who lived a long time ago, he says, "Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity." And you can paraphrase that any way you want. But I certainly think that what you have chosen to do, the road you have chosen to travel, despite and beyond your diagnosis, is more than commendable. You have definitely, you've already been victorious as far as I'm concerned. And I think that the work you're doing is amazing. I want to say this. I said it earlier. Your father, I'm sure, is looking down at his son, saying, "Jacques, you are doing very, very well. You're doing great things, not just for yourself and your family, but for other men." Yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Listen, I really appreciate you being here, right? I know you're busy. You're being called from David, from other members of the group. You're working on some other stuff with some guys to get them onto the show. But I definitely thank you for your willingness to share your experience, your knowledge, the PCA review. I know it's going to be a success. So thank you once again for joining us. I'm gonna say this too, before we forget. Statistically, we know that each year about 300,000 to 400,000 people will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in this country. More than 36,000 will lose the fight.
Yeah.
So to me, those two numbers right there tell us two things. First, it continues to impact hundreds of thousands of families every year. But second, early detection is so critical to winning or surviving prostate cancer. So Jacques, I'm sure you will concur with me when I say, if you haven't, for the viewers, if you haven't had your prostate screening, what are you waiting for, right? Go out there, get those screenings and protect yourself. Be aware, know your numbers.
So I'm sorry, Casey, for interject. You asked me earlier what does Beyond Prostate Cancer means to me. So I will be real short with my answer there. For me, it is to live with purpose, despite what cancer have taken or changed from me. Prostate cancer is part of my story, but it doesn't define who I am. What do I mean by that? I am not waiting for everything in my life to be perfect before allowing myself to experience joy and happiness.
Right. There's no waiting. The days of waiting are long gone, right?
Yeah.
We're middle-aged guys. We're very cognizant of the fact that there's no sense waiting. And I tell people all the time too, Prostate Cancer Awareness Month is in September, but why wait when we should be getting screened today, having the conversations today, talking to our friends, our co-workers, all the men in our circle. And it doesn't have to be a complicated conversation. Hey, have you had your prostate cancer screening? If not, go do it.
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Yeah, listen, spread the word. There's no sense keeping it to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So lastly, I'll say this. Again, we want to have you back, right? We want to have you back. We're going to have you back. You know that. But if this episode resonated with any of you watching, please know that you can join the Reluctant Brotherhood for free. You can go to the website at www.thereluctantbrotherhood.org. But also, if this show really, really touched you, or any episode touched you for that matter, I ask you to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'd really appreciate that. You know, it'll get the show out to viewers like yourself who would really like to see it. Jacques, any final words?
Strength includes being vulnerable. I think that's allowing yourself to be vulnerable is what true strength is about. Staying emotionally present, even when things are difficult.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Even when things are difficult. You know, that may become something. But thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. I'm sure the viewers are appreciative as well. As you know, we try to release episodes every 2 weeks, but be sure to tap on the notification bell on YouTube so that you'll be notified when the next episode airs. As always, I'm Casey, your host. Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and hold each other up. We'll see you next time. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with another man who needs it. For support groups, resources, and brotherhood, visit thereluctantbrotherhood.org. Beyond Prostate Cancer is produced by the Reluctant Brotherhood with support from the Leon Thomas Group and LTG Studio. Subscribe and join us every 2 weeks. This program is for educational and informational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional regarding treatment decisions. The views expressed are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect affiliated organizations.